Good morning, everybody. We've got some bad feedback happening from the boardroom, but I think they've just fixed that. So welcome to the Planning and Community Development Committee for Thursday, September the 10th, 2020. It's 9:30, and I'd like to call this meeting to order and take a moment to recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Seashelt and Squamish Nations. First up is adoption of the agenda. Before we move adoption of the agenda, we're going to make a couple changes to it. J and M on our agenda are going to come up after B because they have to go to board this afternoon, and we're not sure how long this meeting is going to run. And we're going to move Annex F down to after R, and we're going to remove Annex D from the agenda at this time. Are there any other changes that anybody else needs to make?
Could you repeat those, please?
J and M are going to come up after B. We're going to remove Annex D, and we're going to move Annex F to just before communications.
Thank you.
Director Pratt?
Thank you, Chair. There, Annex S, the letter from Islands Trust, would we be able to move that one up as well? Because there's a timeliness issue that we may need to go to board this afternoon. And Director Hiltz and I can speak to that when if we could just move it up a bit more, please.
Up to after M?
Yes, please.
Deal with it right away? Okay. All right. Anything else? See no other hands. Motion to adopt the amended agenda, please. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Great, thank you very much. First up, we've got a delegation. Andrea Watson, Sunshine Coast Skating Club, Stuart Frizzell, Sunshine Coast Youth Hockey Association, and Kate Turner, Registrar. We turn it over to you guys. You've got 10 minutes only because this is a pretty packed agenda and we would like to have lunch today.
Yeah, no, good morning, and thank you very much for having us today. We do appreciate your time and the previous time and previous delegations as well. So we will keep it short. So I have Kate Turner, who's the registrar of both organisations, myself, Andrea Watson, president of the Sunshine Coast Skating Club. Stu Frizzell was not able to make it today, so we have vice president of the Sunshine Coast Minor Hockey Association, Aaron Hamilton. I'm not sure if he has logged on yet or not, so maybe what we'll do is we'll get Kate.
He's on. I've just promoted him up,
okay,
so
okay.
I can turn his microphone on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi guys, sorry I had some difficulty getting my video working there. We want to thank you for having us once again and for allowing us to appear as delegates in front of your panel. This will be our third appearance in front of the board this year, and we're mindful of the other important issues you face, so we won't take too much of your time today. We want to recognize the transition you have initiated within the organization. There are many new faces throughout your staff, and with them, we have witnessed several positive changes. Navigating the pandemic has required a much higher level of communication, and our SCRD direct contacts have reached beyond past practices to make sure that operational details are clearly understood. We show promising signs that cooperation and transparency will be the new normal for our interactions moving forward. It was not so long ago that our local youth sports groups were forced to use their Freedom of Legislation Information Act to access financial information, as we will present today. We enjoy the notion that those days are now behind us. We appreciate that your careful consideration of the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic will have on the Sunshine Coast. And we recognize that this was a driving factor in the direction you gave with regards to the opening of recreation facilities. So through the Freedom of Information Act, we were able to obtain the SCRD's net revenue reports for the ice arenas for 2015, 16, and 17.
So as this slide shows, the 2015 net revenue report for Gibson's ice revenue, $478,000, dry floor $35,222. Seashell Arena revenue for 2015 also $358,706 in comparison to dry floor revenue of $25,972. Follows on for 2016, same breakdown. Ice revenue for Gibson's, $446,000, $248.34 compared to the dry floor revenue at GAC of $31,665. Seashell Arena 2016, $373,000 revenue compared to the $30,000 revenue of dry floor for Sunshine Coast Arena in 2016. And bringing us to 2017, we have ice revenue of $581,093 and dry floor revenue of $25,000. Seashell Arena 2017, our ice revenue $379,000, $278 compared to dry floor of $18,000. So the total revenue combined, we have in green for ice revenue and we have in the red for the dry floor revenue. So as you can see, there is quite a significant difference between revenue brought in for dry floor and ice. So if we look at the most recent 2017 numbers that we have, the 960,000 ice is actually 20 times more than that $44,000 number. And even looking just purely at the Sunshine Coast Arena dry floor revenue and ice revenue, $18,000 to $379,000. Again, 20 times much, 20 times difference between ice and dry floor revenue.
And then we took the liberty of breaking it down by month as well. So based on our usual allocation process, which thanks to the board has certainly grown over the last couple of years in our months on the ice. But you can see the average breakdown per month and the generated revenue between the dry floor and the ice at both facilities. So ice being approximately a 7.5 month season at GAC, the total monthly revenue is $66,000. The dry floor, based on a 4.5 month period at GAC, is $6,500 per month. And then the same can be said for the Sunshine Coast Arena, $52,000 per month based on a 7-month period, and the dry floor, $5,000 a month based on a 5-month period. So these are some very significant differences between the revenue of dry floor and ice.
So when we finished the review of these reports, it became clear to us that the revenue stream for ice rentals is significantly higher than the revenue stream for dry floor rentals. Revenue is vital to recover the fixed costs. It's difficult to understand how the decision to keep ice out of Seashell Arena improves the financial position of the regional district. We also acknowledge your commitment as a board to represent the community and understand that the public opinion is not always clear-cut, and that your work is to determine what is the best interest of the whole community. We hope you've heard in July how important recreation is to the families of the coast, as we hear about it every day. Our members who reside in the northern end of the coast are concerned about accessing their Seashell ice facility. Forcing them to drive to Gibson's to provide their kids with the recreational facility is time-consuming and onerous on the environment. I'm sure you've heard concerns from citizens outside of U Sports that not operating the Seashell Ice Arena will have an impact on their recreational opportunities. Our ice allocation meeting resulted in double and triple booking of many ice times, illustrating the demand for these facilities. We urge you to reconsider the motion passed on July 24th and recommend that the board give staff direction to install ice at the Sunshine Coast Arena in time for resuming regular ice bookings on September 28th. There are some of the questions we have come up with. Please have a look and hopefully you can provide us with some answers.
So when you're with the financial information, we had come up with some questions that we felt that you would have. So, one of those being, we have figures for revenue, what are the costs? And, obviously having those costs would give a much richer picture than what we have with just the revenue. We're not sure of the costs. We have requested the information as recently as our delegation in February 2020, and it would be helpful. What we do know is both DAC and Sunshine Coast Arena are overseen by an ice facility operator, whether the facility is rented for ice or dry floor. So this fixed cost is there regardless of whether ice or dry floor is available. And this is a technical safety BC requirement for buildings open to the public. So again, obviously there is the additional cost of energy to run an ice plant. We recognize that. It's hard to fathom though whether this additional cost of energy would be up to 20 times beyond what that would be for the dry floor. Question number 2 that we had, what is the current demand for ice in Sechelt? So if ice were to be installed the 3rd week of September, as per the ice allocation policy, there would be an additional 35 to 40 hours of ice booked a week from our youth organizations. There would be additional hours booked from adult leagues who are currently not booking ice due to the Sechelt Arena being closed. And the dry floor bookings at Sechelt Arena in 2018, according to the January 31st, 2019 staff report, was 15.5 hours a week. So there'd be a lot more rentals for ice. And number 3, what would be the impact financially and otherwise if Sechelt Arena was to remain closed? So, obviously the numbers that we have reviewed show a huge difference in revenue of what can be made from renting ice as opposed to dry floor. So obviously the revenue lost at the Sechelt Arena in its entirety. But what you may not know is that we're also losing revenue from the Gibsons Arena, as the adult users are not booking the ice they typically would. So the ice allocation meeting on August 20th confirmed that the demand for ice cannot be resolved with one arena only. So it's pushed the start times for the older youth users and the adult users to starting their ice times later than 11 p.m. So obviously those getting up for work and school the next morning, it's obviously, it's not ideal. And it's a barrier for those residents that live north of Sechelt. So the Parks and Rec Master Plan of 2014 does state the second sheet of ice was built to address the distance between the communities, and it defines accessibility as less than a 30-minute drive. So another one of the impacts, other than financial, is that we're impacting the inclusivity within our community if our facilities are not accessible for all residents. Another impact is that our youth organizations are not able to run our full programming. We're actually turning youth away because we just don't have enough ice time with the one sheet of ice. Doesn't bode well for the future of our youth nonprofit organizations, especially after our volunteers have put years and years of work into building these programs and increasing our registrations. So the numbers that we provided were 2015 to 2017. 2017 to current, we've seen a significant increase in membership over the last 3 years. Staff can verify that the daytime ice bookings for the Sunshine Coast Skating Club have exploded since 2018, and programming for both organizations have increased. So we're confident that if we had the revenue for 2017 to current, it would be much higher than what's shown for 2015 to 17. Again, we thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to any questions that you might have. And just to reiterate, we really respectfully request that you reconsider the July 30th motion and provide staff with direction to install ice at Sunshine Coast Arena in time for resuming our regular ice bookings on September the 28th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that presentation. Questions from the committee? Director Ties? Director Ties, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it just told me my internet connection is unstable. I hope everybody can hear me. But I guess my question is more to the directors, whether revenue is everything that we need to consider. It seems like a pretty clear-cut case to me that that revenue would be higher if the ICE users were allowed back. Maybe staff can confirm that. But part of my decision-making process was that the dry floor users also lost their ice or lost their space in the summertime, and so I was thinking more of an equity kind of place where the dry floor users can use it. Not to mention that a lot of the dry floor venues like school gyms and things like that are not accessible to your normal dry floor users. So for me, it's more of an equity thing, but maybe staff can confirm that revenues would be higher if indeed we put ICE back in.
I'll let GM Hall speak to that if he wants to. I know that, revenues for sure would be higher, operating costs would be higher. That was part of the report that we had seen previously. But Mr. Hall, you've unmuted yourself.
Just to confirm the exact point that you just made, Chair. Staff think it's reasonable to assume that both revenues and costs would be higher if ICE was installed. Thanks.
Director McMahon.
Yes, obviously revenues from users do not cover the majority of our costs. I think it's about 20% for recreation as a whole. One of the things that I find difficult about this whole discussion is that we do not see the financials for the recreation facilities broken out individually. And I would really like to see that in our budget, because we've been making decisions based on numbers that are difficult to understand. So I'm hoping that in the 2021 budget, we can see 650 broken out by facility. Thanks.
Admittedly, it's been some time since I've been through the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, but I was surprised to read about that 30-minute window being the definition for accessibility of facilities here on the coast. I spent 10 years in Vancouver, and you'd spend 30 minutes to go 3 or 4 blocks, never mind finding a rec facility. Just distance on the coast is really not what it seems. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you for being here with us today. We're not going to make any specific recommendations at this time. But yeah, thank you for being here today and for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to Annex A. First, a motion to receive all reports and communications and minutes. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex A, Storage Area Network Expansion and Services Contract Award Report. Hand it over to Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. This is an award report for a planned procurement project to expand the disk space of the main and the backup storage area networks. We refer to them as the SANs, to meet planned capacity needs and to extend the warranty and the support services for these IT assets through July 2021 with an option for a 3-year extension. The SCRD purchased the main SAN 5 years ago and added a backup SAN 2 years ago for business continuity purposes. Staff recommend awarding the $142,000 total contract through July 2021 to the original equipment manufacturer, Pure Storage, after completing a notice of intent process to direct award the contract that revealed no contenders. Maintenance and support costs for the existing SANs are already included in the IT Function 117 2020 budget. maintenance and support costs for the new expansion hardware will require a $10,100 increase in the annual base operating budget starting in 2021. Staff recommend the financial plan be amended accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Director Seegers?
I'll move the recommendations on page 1 as presented.
Okay, is there a seconder? All right, many seconders. Director McMahon?
We have never been more dependent on IT. Oh boy, we gotta make it work.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Ties?
Yeah, just a quick question whether the option of cloud storage has been pondered and whether that's a feasible option or not.
Yes, it has been pondered, absolutely, and we continue to look at it. There are some additional risks. We would be probably looking more holistically at our storage options as a next year project, which would include a revisit in a more procedural way of that option.
Thank you for that. Director Hiltz?
Thank you, Chair. Interested to know if there's any supply chain issues in the technology related field related to COVID. Is there anything going on in that industry? Particularly reference to you getting the materials.
I don't anticipate that there would be. We have seen some slowdowns initially, but mostly this would require shipment of a piece of hardware and installation services. So we would need to arrange for that. And typically Pure Storage, the service contract includes an on-site implementation. So there may be some travel implications with that. But we're looking to move this forward as soon as it's approved because we are at a fairly high capacity utilization already. Thank you.
But it beats the filing cabinets and filing cabinets of documents. Director Kroll?
Thank you, Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong. Storage is a commodity, isn't it? Like it's priced sort of current market price. So is there any anticipation that the figures that are given could fluctuate significantly due to delivery or time of order?
Yes, there is, Director Kroll. The possibility of exchange rate fluctuations. Pure Storage is out of San Francisco. And so in the report, I've asked for a variance of 5% to account for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Seeing no further hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All right. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for your report and good luck with your upgrade. Moving on to Annex B, roof replacement at Roberts Creek Fire Hall Award Report. I'll turn it over to Matt Trite.
Thank you, Director. So this report deals with the replacement of a portion of the fire hall roof at Roberts Creek. This has been an ongoing issue for certainly before my time. Approximately 5 years ago, there was $150,000 budgeted. And when we moved forward on the project this year, we found that that money was inadequate. The project cost more than that. And then as well, once we included the engineering costs, the contingency costs, it was significantly over. So we've reduced the scope of work to deal with that portion of the roof, which was most in need of repair. And once we had the contingency, we found we needed another $79,705 to complete the reduced project, and that will be charged against the Roberts Creek Capital Fund.
All right. Thank you. I can't remember. I'm sure I saw it in the report, but admittedly, I can't remember offhand. The type of roof that's on here is a torch-on?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Is any consideration ever given to restructuring these roofs to put metal or something a little longer duration on them than torch-on roofing?
I don't believe for this project, I don't believe that was.
Okay. Director Tice?
Yeah, that was kind of my question. Is it, that's a lot of money for 15 years of lifespan that generally torch-on roofing has. So yeah, I'm just wondering if there could be something more longer lasting that could be put in place. The hall beside it, I think they needed 100 and something thousand to put metal roofing on theirs, and I don't. The fire hall isn't that much bigger, so I'm just a bit shocked at first the price, and secondly that it's not going to be super long. We can't expect a super long life out of it, but I'm guessing we've gone through a competitive quoting process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up to that, I'm not sure if anybody's on right now who is able to answer that. As part of the asset management, do we look at things like upgrading roof structures to facilitate, not just on a fire hall, but on all of our buildings, to look at whether longer term moving to something like metal roofing and sloped roofs are more practical or economical? I don't know if anybody's willing to take that on.
I think because it is a flat roof, I'm not sure if you can do metal on a flat roof, so that would involve, I believe, re-engineering the whole roof to add a pitch to it, I would think, but it's not my area of expertise.
No, for sure you can't put metal on a flat roof, but that's in the asset management picture of things. I saw CEO McKinley unmuted himself there for a sec, so maybe he's got something to add on.
Only that I'd be happy to get an answer back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just interested in, it says 1/3 of the scope was changed, so that means that 2/3 of the roof is yet to be replaced, and there's a schedule for that?
It was reduced by 1/3, so 2/3 of the roof is being replaced, 1/3 is not. And we'll have to reevaluate that remaining section in, I guess, our next couple of years.
Okay, but there's no specific timeline for that, I think is what Director Hiltz was asking.
No, not at this time. We don't have one.
Okay. Director McMahon. Oh, sorry, Mark, did you have a follow-up?
In terms of the asset stewardship here, the 1/3 of the roof is expected, its lifetime is more than a couple of years. The roofer would have, someone made that assessment. A professional person who understands roofs and stuff like this.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I would just agree with everyone else that we need to look at our assets in the long term, and also the GHG emissions associated with different options. If you've been anywhere near torch-on roofing, it's foul. It's absolutely foul. And maybe there is a better option, and the cost over time might make more sense to look at something that's in the short term a little more expensive, but in the long term environmentally friendly and a sensible use of funds.
Thank you for that. Director Hiltz.
Further on top of the materials, rainwater catchment is kind of the one that kind of springs to mind. And as roofs are designed and assets moving forward, the fire hall uses a lot of water. Yeah, I don't know what the circumstances are, but for consideration in the future of rainwater collection, should we be doing with our own buildings? I guess, and that ties in with roof selection materials, and it's a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tice, you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I'm willing to move the recommendations right now, but maybe maybe I'll add a motion to that, that staff, uses asset management, an asset management lens to investigate future, roof and structural improvements to existing buildings. I don't know, kind of encompassing the discussion that we've just had now. Maybe somebody from staff could help with the wording of that.
So point of order, can we just maybe keep that secondary piece that Director Ties has just suggested
Separate motion.
as a fully separate motion, please? Just for process side.
That extends to more than just this particular roof project. So,
yeah.
Okay. Director Ties, I did hear you say you'll move these recommendations though as presented.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got a seconder. A reminder that this is voting A, B, D, E, and F only. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? And opposed? No? Okay, that's carried. Sorry, Director Lee, I didn't see your hand, so. Is Director Lee frozen? Nope, Director Lee's there. Just didn't see you vote.
Area A doesn't vote on this issue?
Oh. I don't know. You were listed on the voting thing because it's part of protective services, but that's a good point. So, okay. Anyways, that's carried.
Maybe
Thank you, Director Lee. I was reading the order paper. Director Ties, did you have a further motion you'd like to make?
Yeah, well, and maybe staff can do a better job of wording motions. I seem to not do a great job of making motions on the fly, so I'll let somebody more competent do that.
Perhaps that staff include in asset management planning the possibility of restructuring buildings for longer duration envelope options or roof options or
Longer life expectancy.
Longer life expectancy.
And longer and lower GHG emissions.
Director McMahon, is that what?
Or we could say incorporating green technologies such as rainwater capture and solar, where applicable, because it may not be applicable everywhere, or practical.
Okay. That sounds like a motion. Would somebody like to make that motion? Director Ties, moved. Is there a seconder for that motion? All right, Director McMahon. Now this is voting all, I believe, because this would be applying to all of our facilities, not just protective services structures. Director McMahon?
Should we ask staff to read that back?
I think that sounds like a great idea, Director McMahon. Thank you. Staff, can we have that read back, please?
Sorry, Adam.
Chair. Here's what I captured, and we can wordsmith this a little bit better afterwards, but that staff include the possibility of restructuring buildings for longer life expectancy, lower GHG emissions, and incorporating green technologies such as solar, when applicable, in future asset management planning.
I mean, I'm happy with that. How does everybody else feel about that? All right. Director Pratt?
I was just, it might be good for staff to comment on that, whether on the feasibility of doing that as part of the asset management planning prior to us voting on this, because we don't want to direct them to do something that's impossible.
To add an impossibility to their workload, for sure. Who from staff would like to take that?
Take a general stab at it. I think the direction in the wording, I'm confident that these are things that we are able to consider as part of our normal processes, and I don't think in and of itself the wording poses unnecessary or undue hardship on the work of staff.
Thank you, CEO McKinley. Director Seegers.
Could I hear that back once more, please?
Sure. Autumn?
Thanks, Chair. So I've got staff include the possibility of restructuring buildings for longer life expectancy, lower GHG emissions, and incorporating green technologies such as solar, when applicable, in future asset management planning.
Okay. Future asset management planning, so that would include maintenance and various kinds of things. Okay. It wasn't clear to me as to what we were actually having them look at those for. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Annex J, page 289 in the package. Development variance permit DVP 00066, 12658 Canoe Road. And turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Development variance permit 00066, 12658 Canoe Road. This report provides details on an application to vary the required 4.5 meter setback from an exterior side parcel line. The need for the variance application was instigated by a staff error in the planning department review of the building permit application. In light of this, this application has been expedited direct to the PCD without first going to APC. That proposed variance would permit the furthest extent of the proposed dwelling to be 2.78 meters to accommodate the overhang of the building from the exterior side parcel line, with the closest corner of the foundation located at 3.62 meters from the exterior parcel line. The parcel line in question abuts an undeveloped dedicated road that is labeled as a lane on the original subdivision plan. Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure considers this as a lane, and as such, in accordance with their provincial regulation, requires a 3 meter setback from this parcel line. The applicant has submitted a development application to Shechel Nation Rights and Title Department, is anticipating an upcoming meeting to address concerns and meet their requirements. This application, of course, was, we provided notification in accordance with the Local Government Act. We received one letter feedback from neighbors, Brenda and Max Winkler, owners of 12654 Canoe Road, located to the south of the subject property. Their concerns include fire risk with houses close together, unfairness. They were required to redo their house plans to conform to regulations, and a huge hole on the property line. To address those concerns, it should be noted that 12654 Canoe Road is a corner lot abutting 2 public roads and not the lane in question. The variance is not related to spatial separation between these buildings. The applicant, Kim Harris, is in the gallery and is available for comments or questions.
I believe she wanted to take a minute to say a few words, so we're going to allow her to say those few words. I can't see her, though. There she is. There she was. There we go.
Hello. I don't.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I just don't see myself. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dave, for presenting that. I wanted to know if some of the people here today received the email that I sent out yesterday. It was sort of later at the end of the day, but I did send it to Dave, Alton, and Ian, as well as Dean. So I'm just wondering if you had a chance to look at that document that I sent out.
I got a thumbs up from Director McMahon, so that email was circulated to directors.
Thank you. So I guess, just in wanting to make things clear and be honest from the very beginning that those were my thoughts in collaboration with my engineer. So this has been very anxiety provoking for me, and I just want to do the right thing and go forward. And hopefully the document adds some clarity. Yeah, I just want to get going with my build in a more positive way. It's been quite anxiety provoking.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Directors, do you have any questions for Ms. Harris? Director Hiltz.
Yeah, if the applicant had any comments on how the error occurred and the process improvements from the applicant's point of view, what kind of happened?
I'm sorry, Director Hiltz, could you repeat that?
In the staff report, there was a determination of a staff error, and if in your dealing with the process, what kind of process improvements would you see in terms of the error, preventing another error such as this? What would be your point of view?
Oh, I see. Yes, of course. Well, having read the bylaw over and over again several times, I wonder if it might be an idea to relook at that bylaw and perhaps interpret it how I interpret it and how other staff members previously in your department interpret it. There seems to be that it's not a consistent interpretation. So that might have helped because different people told me different things, and that I think that added to the confusion here. Not to point fingers at anybody, of course.
All right. Thank you very much. Director Hiltz, did you have anything further?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody's working towards a better process, and so the clarity of the language around the bylaw seems to be where people we're struggling to understand what it actually meant.
I believe that was initially the cause of it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Now I've seen another hand. Director Lee.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations as presented.
All right, and seconded by Director McMahon. Reminder, this is voting A, B, D, E, and F. Any further discussion on the motions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Harris, for being here today.
Thank you very much. You've made me feel a whole lot better.
And this will be going to board this afternoon for affirmation.
Okay, so I still have the rest of the day to wait.
At least till just after 1:30. So thank you for being here today.
Am I required to be back at that time?
No, you don't have to come back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Staff will follow up with you as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to Annex M. Find my page number here. Page 313. Refrigeration plant upgrade, MCC panel design and replacement. Who would like to speak to this today? Yeah. Turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. During the summer of 2019, a significant refrigeration plant upgrade project was started at the Sunshine Coast Arena. Due to the duration, complexity, and in order to meet our scheduled ice install date in 2019, the MCC panel replacement portion of the project was carried over to 2020. This work is required to replace aging, obsolete equipment and meet regulatory requirements. The cost of this project exceeds $100,000 and therefore requires board approval to proceed. Staff are prepared to complete this work subject to board approval prior to year end.
All right, thank you very much. Do directors have any questions? Seeing no questions, we do have some recommendations here. Director Seegers.
So we had a delegation this morning looking for us to put ice in by the end of September. If we stay with the recommendation we made previously to staff, then this could go forward as presented. So it would actually happen now, between now and the end of the year. So if we were to look at requesting that staff put ice in, then this would have to be delayed. So just pointing that out.
And I believe there was an additional cost associated with delaying that work into the summer shutdown period.
I believe it was $3,500.
Yeah. Director Ties.
Yeah, I'm willing to move those recommendations.
All right. Seconded by Director McMahon. This is voting everybody except Area A. Sorry, Area A. Is there any further? Director Seegers.
Thank you. It doesn't actually indicate in the recommendations that we are directing staff to move forward with doing this before the end of the year. That I think is assumed inside of the report, but it isn't actually specifically indicated in the recommendations.
Do staff need any additional information or an additional clarity on that, or?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Staff don't usually include the timeline for completion of projects in contract awards, but for additional clarity, if the committee would like to note that, and that the project proceed for completion by end of year, that certainly is fine by staff. Thank you.
I'm happy to make that amendment. Director Seegers?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor? All right, that's carried. So we have an amended motion. I saw a number of hands go up and come down again. I don't know if anybody would still like to speak to the motion. Director Ties, I'd seen your hand up at one point.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe say that I think we could have left it up to the staff's discretion. Should we change our mind? But I guess we've now voted on it, so never mind.
On the amendment. Okay, I don't see any further hands up for discussion, so I'm going to call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex S, correspondence from the Islands Trust. Now, Director Pratt, you'd asked this to come forward.
Yes, thank you for supporting bringing this forward a little bit earlier in the meeting. This is an issue that Director Hiltz and I have discussed a little bit this week coming into here. There is a high level of anxiety with our Gambier Island community regarding the new Brighton dock, which has been indicated by the Squamish Nation that they wish to that they might be interested in letting it go, and they have there's a number of conversations that have been happening already on this. I think Director Hiltz had an interesting thought about this. The reason I asked for this, we might want to bring this towards board this afternoon, just because of the timeline. Our next meeting isn't, and our next board meeting isn't until October the 8th. But Director Ties had Director Hiltz had an interesting thought about actually requesting to go as a delegation to Islands Trust and explain what it actually means to take on a service, because essentially that's what they're asking us to do as a regional district within this letter. They have 3 asks in here. To support them, bring forward our expertise, and requesting active support. So there is an inference that it would be financial support, which we can't necessarily do within our current structure. And maybe Director Hiltz, if you'd like to, if the chair would recognize you, you can speak to this as well.
Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, the letter is asking for support, and it's mostly resources from the regional district. And part of pulling apart this problem is understanding the roles of the various local governments. And as Islands Trust is not really a service provider, they don't create services, whereas a regional district is. Explaining those processes through a delegation could be a good step to knowing what lanes we're in and what supports are available. The request is kind of like fix the problem. And right now, no one really has ownership of this problem. And there has been some developments with the Gambier Island Community Association looking to take a lead on this. They have charitable status. They have a source of revenue to some degree. So I think a delegation is one option. And the local trust meeting, I believe, is October the 1st is the next one. So that's an opportunity. I think Chair Pratt and I were saying there's the legislative, there's the elected, and then there's the procedures, and we might be able to get some support from staff at the delegation to help explain how something like this could be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I had two things. One is, how many ports do we operate on Gambier right now? So we operate 4, not including New Brighton, which is the most important, arguably, of the 4. Okay. This is not, the ideally designed service here. At our last meeting with the Islands Trust, it was identified that we need to sit down and plan for the future of our port service and to really seriously look at whether the docks as they are currently constituted are practical going forward, and how many of them we should maintain, and if we should maintain them, what in what form, and so forth. So are there any further steps being taken towards setting up a planning process on ports?
Sounds like a question for GM Hall.
Thank you for the question, Chair. There's continued asset management work underway as part of a capital planning process for ports, and I guess there's continued work to improve the sustainability of the service with a budget increase that was approved as part of the 2020 budget, and which will increase the planning and management resources associated with the service. I don't know if that answers the question adequately. If there's a follow-up, staff can add more. Thank you.
Director McMahon.
Perhaps Islands Trust could put some resources towards this, and we could ask them for help. Just a thought.
All right. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the workshop that we're having on the 14th, Community Dock Management Workshop, will start this conversation. As part of that agenda, there is the New Brighton Dock and an overview of the Ports Division services.
Could certainly be an opportunity to learn more about them as a holistic approach. Director Pratt?
Just wanted to note that the conversation has already started. Director Hiltz and I have been involved with staff in conversing with Trustee Kate Louise Stanford on this issue, and so there has been certainly a large amount of conversation. It's just the concern that Director Hiltz and I have with this letter that's coming forward for support is, as Director Hiltz said, the Islands Trust isn't necessarily a service provider. The Islands Trust has a different mandate within, which is why they're asking us for support, which is primarily, when you read between the lines, financial support, as well as staff support and resources. So there's some education, I think, that needs to happen, and the reason we may want to bring this to board if we want to have is just the timeliness piece. That yes, we do have the meeting on Monday with Islands Trust, but if we wanted to appear as a delegation for their next group meeting, then which is October the 1st, this is why we would need to bring something forward as a motion or something or a recommendation today. That makes sense.
Director McMahon?
Right. Well, so we're talking about two things. One is the delegation to Islands Trust. And I know that there has been conversation about the future of the ports, but I would like to see us make some substantive progress in that direction, to even towards setting up a process coming out of our meeting next week, so that we're not just talking about it, but that we're setting up some sort of thoughts for what the process will be to look at our ports. And even if we, we can't do everything instantly, but we do need to look at it. It is somewhat seasonal in nature too, because, most of the dire accidents that happen to docks happen in the winter, and then we get faced with the funny budget implications in the spring. So anyway, that's just me saying that I support if other directors want to go as a delegation on this issue, and I would like to see us take some concrete steps in the right direction.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Hiltz?
Just to give a little context, the SCRD got into the ports business through a divestiture from the federal government, which was triggered by a specific ask to the regional district. And another situation was the BC Ferries float, which was triggered by BC Ferries, who owns the asset, to say you cannot leave it. This instance is quite different, whereas the asset owner, the Squamish Nation, has not engaged the regional district. So it's kind of a funny situation. So understanding the roles of when the asset owner isn't actually saying, do you want to buy this? And uncertainty. So I think this is where the delegation can help to kind of explain the differences and similarities of how the regional district got into the ports business, and transparency. So the active dock management issue has been coming through a GME and all has been helping out. But there's a limit, I think, to what they can within whatever service advice is being provided. So I think these are the things that need to be established, is who provides the resources. And I think that would be one of the benefits of the delegation, is to kind of explain those roles.
Director McMahon?
Am I hearing a motion?
Are you making a motion, Director McMahon?
Well, I was kind of hoping that Area F might lead the charge, but I am in the ports function, so I am willing to move that the SCRD go as a delegation to the next Islands Trust meeting to discuss the situation with New Brighton.
Okay. Director Hiltz, you've got a hand raised. You're unmuted.
I'm ready to go. I'm locked and loaded, is the saying. I would say that, in response to the letter, we can write a letter back asking, not telling them we would be a delegation, but asking if they would be interested in that in response to the letter, rather than try to package up a letter. Just make the offer. Can we come and talk to you about this at a delegation? So something a little simpler.
Director Pratt?
Thank you. There's also, we could also do it simply as an intergovernmental meeting as well, with this as the specific topic around the New Brighton dock. As an amendment.
One more option in there. Well, we haven't had that seconded yet, so I still looking for a motion from somebody in the ports function on how to deal with this.
So how about I suggest that the SCRD requests to be a delegation at a future Islands Trust meeting, or as or holds an intergovernmental meeting with Island Trust in regards to the new Brighton dock. Would that work?
Sounds good to me, and Director McMahon has seconded it. So, Director Hiltz, you have your... Oh, Director Seegers, sorry. Director Seegers has had her hand up and down a number of times, so we'll go to her.
Could we also suggest that this letter be forwarded to the board this afternoon, and that this recommendation also be on the board agenda this afternoon?
That sounds like a good amendment. Or, yeah, I suppose at this point it should be an amendment because we've seconded a motion. So, would somebody, Director McMahon, making that amendment?
Yeah, I can make that amendment.
As Seashell does not participate in the port's function?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment of taking it to board this afternoon, or adding taking it to board this afternoon? No. Just as a reminder, I don't know, just as a reminder, who's in the port's function? Not the District of Seashell. Not Pender Harbor, not Town of Gibsons. Okay, all the other rural areas. All right. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, that's carried. So we have an amended motion. Director Hiltz, I see your hand up.
I just read it back, one more time.
For sure. Autumn, can we hear that back?
Thank you, Chair. I have that the SRD respond to the Islands Trust letter with the offer to appear as a delegation at a future Islands Trust meeting to discuss the new Brighton dock. Or as an alternative, the SRD organizes an intergovernmental meeting with Islands Trust regarding the new Brighton dock. And that the following recommendation be forwarded to the September 10th regular board meeting.
As well as the correspondence was part of the amendment as well.
Okay, so that this correspondence from Islands Trust be forwarded to the board as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll add that in there.
All right. Director Hiltz, you're content? Thank you. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving back to Annex C. Egmont Pender Harbor Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 708.2/2020 and Electoral Area A Zoning Bylaw Amendment 337.122. Turn it over to Mr. Xiao.
Thank you, Chair. So the SCRD received an official community plan and zoning bylaw amendment application to accommodate existing and future development of the BC Ferry Old Cove Terminal. The proposal does not include any new development at the present time, and future development will be informed by BC Ferry's terminal development plan, which is currently underway. The zoning and OCP amendment is seeking to recognize existing uses and accommodate potential future growth. Preliminary public and agency consultation reviews a number of issues, including the utilities, land use conflicts with adjacent properties, and traffic circulation. This report indicates that these issues can be resolved jointly by BC Ferries and adjacent property owners, and by traffic improvement concept plans currently being considered and will be further reviewed through the terminal development planning process. Staff recommend proceeding to the next stage of the application process with first reading and second reading of the bylaws and a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I see that Director Pratt already has her hand up.
Just a question for staff. If have we heard from BC Ferries whether or not they might be halting process on this? I know that with the financial situation that the pandemic has presented them with, they have put a stall on all other capital investments, and I'm just wondering if we have an update on that, or if the most recent correspondence is still that they're planning on moving ahead with this.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As far as we know, BC Ferry has not provided any information about postponing development, and actually they are just starting their public consultation on their terminal development plan through their online platforms.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from directors? Director Ties.
Yeah, on page 11, the Egmont Pender Harbor APC seems to make a recommendation that they remove the food and retail sales component unless the Cove restaurant immediately ceases business. And I don't understand the rationale for that one and why that would be a request.
Just for clarification there, it says immediately to the east ceases business.
Located adjacent to the terminal immediately east ceases business, yes.
Yeah. But the rest of the question still stands about why they're...
I'm not quite clear for the rationale behind that request.
Do staff have any comments on that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So if I may, I will just make a point. Actually, the report has indicated that the competition in the market is beyond the control of the zoning bylaws. So, but we don't know exactly why the APC recommend that. But through the meeting, we kind of we understand that they have a concern that there may be a competition that brought by the new development at the BC Ferries. Thank you.
Which is definitely outside the purview of the zoning bylaw. Director Lee, as it's your area, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on that, or?
No, I think we should just, I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations, but we need to get somebody delegated as chair and alternate chair for the third reading.
I was going to offer myself up as tribute, but I see Director Pratt raised her hand. So, Director Pratt, you want to be chair?
Well, unless Chair Toth, you want to be tribute for that, but I'm happy to volunteer myself as well.
Okay. So, Director Lee, you'll be alternate chair for that meeting as is standard practice?
Yes, please.
Okay. So you're moving the recommendations as presented with Director Pratt being delegated as chair and Director Lee being delegated as alternate chair for the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Director McMahon. This is areas A, B, D, E, and F. Any further comments on the recommendations? Seeing none. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex E. Do we want to take a 5-minute break first? Okay, let's come back at 10:44. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice little break. Moving on to Annex E, zoning amendment bylaw number 310.184 2018 and 337.118 2018 for short-term rental accommodation regulations. Third reading and adoption. Turn it over to Mr. Seo.
Thank you, Chair. The second public hearing on the proposed bylaw amendments for short-term rental and B&B has gathered further and a broad range of feedback from the community. Analysis of the feedback received concludes that the bylaws are important protection for the integrity and quality of life of residential neighborhoods. The bylaws do not hinder tourism, housing affordability, or the local economy, but rather provide potential for growth and new business opportunities. And the bylaws are compatible with SCRD's current bylaw enforcement capabilities. Therefore, staff recommend concluding the extensive review process of these bylaws by third reading and adoption of the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see we already have hands. Director McMahon was first.
Yes, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about this over the last week. I don't think this bylaw is perfect, but I think we spent enough time on it. As we covered at our strategic plan review session last week, we have a great many issues on our plates, including the need for a regional growth strategy, and including the need to move forward with the rest of the bylaw 310 review, which is critical to addressing land use issues in the rural areas. So I think that it's time to put this one to bed, being careful to have no more than 2 people in that bed, and get on with other items. This bylaw, as currently drafted, addresses the number one concern raised by the public, that residential areas are zoned for residents to live in, not for the operation of commercial ventures. If people want to operate small hotels, they need to be properly zoned and licensed and pay commercial property taxes. This is consistent with the BC Supreme Court decision that short-term rentals with no owner living on site are not a legitimate residential use of property. The number 2 concern that everybody has raised is enforcement. So it's time for us to stop wordsmithing the bylaw and get on with a procedure to shut down the party houses that have been the source of multiple complaints. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you, Director McMahon. Director Pratt, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with Director McMahon's statements. I think it is time to put it to bed, even though you can have more than the 2 people in the bed, as long as you don't have more than 4 per 2-bedroom space. So I think we need to do this. I think we can always reevaluate it after. It does not need to be a static thing, but I think we need to get this done. The B&B industry what happened here is we've gone beyond the share economy that has happened that is what gave rise to the Airbnb industry and the short-term rental industry, I should say, as a whole. We will not make everyone happy with this. However, I do believe that we need to change our tactics for enforcement. We need to be more strict with enforcement. And I do think it is important to recognize for owners that are currently using doing an off-site operator of any short-term rental, that it has never been allowed within our current zoning. So it's important that the ones that have invested in using it, invested in properties as short-term rentals, that was not an available option for them, yet they've chosen to do it. We need to respond to this. I've got so many in Area B. We have complete neighborhoods that are being affected by these large party homes. I think that we can, moving forward, reevaluate this and see how it works with our business community and our community associations. But I'm supporting and moving this forward now and getting her done.
Director Ties.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, and also the directors for this extensive review process. It's been a long time coming. I'm also mostly in favor of the way that things are headed right now. I think there is a better way to and a more inclusive way to do the bedroom limit thing. I don't think using bedrooms is actually all that efficient. I think I personally think that large families should somehow be accommodated, and basically just saying, hey, you can rent out 2 bedrooms, and as long as it's one party that all lives in the same, like all has the same home address, being a family or something like that, that might work better than basically shunting larger families off to the side. So it's difficult, but staff told me that apparently we can't limit the number of people, we can only limit the space, but then now we've got a recommendation that limits the number of people per bedroom. So I'm still not 100% clear as to why we can't just make a recommendation that says something like two couples max, or a one party, and no matter what size, as long as they have the same home address, that being the definition of a family. I don't know if maybe staff wants to comment on that.
Did staff want to comment on any possible reach there? GM Hall?
Well, thank you, Chair. So generally, zoning regulates property, not people. And so to begin to define users of property entails substantial risk for ambiguity or claims of discrimination, and challenges legal authority. Not to mention challenges with enforcement and compliance and checking people's home addresses, to use a specific example. So generally generally and specifically, staff do not recommend introducing the concept of a family into zoning regulation. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Hiltz?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, staff, for and even previous boards for moving it forward. I'm generally supportive of it, and acknowledging that this is not perfect. My ongoing concerns are the service level and the bylaw enforcement. Is the sort of premise is on-site will fix almost all the other nuisance problems. And I do see a bit of an equity issue. I'm going to draw attention to page 61 and 62, and I'm still trying to figure out if this is my right interpretation. The party houses, and as Director ties these 5-bedroom places, looking at the table and the numbers, that the potential for B&Bs with up to 5 bedrooms is a total of just over 1,200 parcels. Those, for the most part, are in Area A in the column from RU3 all the way up. So areas B, D, and E, and F. F has none. Area E has none. B has 42, and D has 1. So Area A, it looks like the party houses are going to Area A, is what it's starting to look like. This is going to change the market. And I do have ongoing concerns about the ability of the bylaw enforcement. And so I said, staff says let her go and adopt it and see what happens. Let the market and the bylaw play out, I think, is kind of where I am. But it's time to move on. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Hiltz. Although I'm pretty certain at no point would staff have said let her go. But Director Kroll?
Thank you. Even though I can't vote on this,
You're muted, Director Kroll.
took my hand down and muted myself. I sort of agree with Director McMahon. You know, the bylaw probably isn't perfect, but I think we really have to be careful, or I say we, that you don't start tweaking it too much at this point, because we got ourselves into that awkward position in Gibson's and started tweaking, and now we're likely going to have to go back to public hearing. So I agree with Director McMahon. Had we been not trying to make something perfect the first time out, we would have just passed it and then altered it as need be. But I think with all the time and effort and energy that's gone into it this far, I totally agree with Director McMahon. Pass it and fix it later.
All right, thank you, Director Kroll. I'm hoping somebody's going to move this at some point soon. So, Director Pratt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Before I move it, I'll just make a couple of comments. I do have concern about the larger families as well, as mentioned by Director Ties, because having 3 adult children, if we were to travel anywhere, and they wanted to bring their partners along, we'd be staying in separate dwellings at this point. However, the majority of the hotel operations right now on the coast are up in areas B and A. So, we're already dealing with a lot of the tourism operations up here anyways. So I'm not surprised that our parcels would fit this as well. Having worked in the tourism industry for a number of years, the real problem is it is the on-site versus off-site. If you have someone on-site, you can deal with these issues as they come up, deal with the noise. As soon as you have an off-site, whether it's a regular hotel or a regular resort operation or a short-term rental accommodation within a home, that's when things go out of hand. So with that, I would like to move the recommendations that are on page 59 of our package.
And I see Director McMahon has seconded that. Excellent. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I think Director Toth can contest that Seashalt has our share as well. We've been getting bombarded with emails over the last number of weeks since the article was in the paper that we are going to be looking at this with our zoning bylaw. So it is something that is up and down the coast. I think it'll be interesting to see how it gets enforced.
Maybe we'll have to make sure that Seashalt can accommodate all the large families that are traveling, so we get all of that business. All right, it is on the floor. Is anybody else liking to speak to that motion? Director Seegers, okay. Director Ties.
Actually, no, I'm good. I just wanted to vote for it.
Oh, all right. Then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All right, that's passed. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex G. Westhouse Sound Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 640.3 2020 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 310.188 2020. Consideration of third reading and adoption. Back over to Yuli.
Thank you, Chair. The public hearing on this application provides further public feedback on the proposed development and bylaw amendments, despite objection from residents directly across from North Road. Overall, there appears to be support from the community for the proposal, which seeks to blend in with the rural surroundings, minimize impact on the site and adjacent lands, and create affordable housing opportunities for the proponent of the development as well as the community. The Westhouse Sound OCP's objective for promoting affordable housing opportunities in suitable areas can be achieved through the proposed developments. Staff recommend that the bylaw proceed to third reading and adoption, subject to confirmation of the undertaking of the owner's proposed donation of 1 strata lot to Sunshine Coast Habitat for Humanity. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I see no hands. However, this is an Area F discussion, so now I see Director Hiltz. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, first a question about the letter of undertaking. So in this situation, the SCRD will not be a partner to this agreement. It seems like the SCRD is acting as a facilitator by putting the applicant and a third party together, that being Habitat for Humanity. And my kind of question is this the first time that the SCRD has actually done this kind of a facilitation?
Staff? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So as far as I know, this is the first time that we have facilitated a contribution related to affordable housing. The SCRD is because it's not a covenant, so therefore the SCRD is not part of this a donation. So it will be just a ownership that will be under the name of the Habitat for Humanity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I see no, Director Hiltz.
If there are no further questions, I'm happy to move it. What I can say from the community perspective is I think people have been surprised at how fast this application has gone through. In the past, things kind of take time. So I think this is an example of a good project and good working with staff, a good solid project. It's a unique approach, our first time. And for me, it's going to, in the neighborhood, it's going to be the implementation. So that's, again, it's here are the tools for the applicant. And now get on with it, do the implementation. And I hope to be looking back at this in 10 years and going, that was an awesome idea and an awesome development. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think all the pieces are there. And the issues around the neighborhood have been addressed, I think, by the site-specific nature of it. It's a slightly sloping property. It slopes away from adjacent properties. And I did ask a question about the height of staff, because we did have an issue in Grantham's Landing, small lots and height. And I feel that the staff has addressed this adequately, and it does give the applicant room for things such as solar panels, some innovation within that scope. So yeah, I'm supportive, and I'm happy to move the recommendations as presented on page 222.
All right. Thank you very much. This is rural planning. I see a seconder from Director McMahon. So A, B, D, E, and F. Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. I think the only comment I would like to make is, I know it was one of the comments that's coming from within the community was the concern about pushing something like this, or well, they used, putting something like this through during a pandemic. And I think it's important to note that we can't stop all of our legislative processes because the business of the regional district would halt, because we're going to be going through this for an extended period of time. So I just wanted to address that we can't stop our processes just because we're in a pandemic. I believe that staff has fully consulted with the community. I attended the public hearing as an observer. I feel everybody was heard very well, and that's been taken in account of. So thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting project. I think it's in a good location. It's on a bus route. It's near the ferry. It's near Gibson's. The question of density often comes up. Density is relative. By Gibson's standards, this is not a dense development, but by, ALR standards, you might consider it a dense development. But I think it's workable. and I look forward to seeing how this builds out.
All right. Thank you very much. Seeing no further hands up, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex H, Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw 310.178, 2018, Plowden Eco Lodge. Back over to you, Lee, again.
Thank you, Chair. So the public hearing for this application indicates that there was no objection from the public to the proposed tourist accommodation development. The recently completed arbitration resolved the remaining issues of road access to the development site. So staff recommends third reading and adoption of the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, a bunch of questions were raised regarding the public hearing and the process around this, because this public hearing was more than 2 years ago, and it involved the previous board. None of the representatives having continued. So is there a stale date on public hearings? Is if something goes to public hearing, is it in that public hearing state forever and ever? Or how does this work? Could somebody enlighten me a bit?
I had that question during agenda review. I'm going to ask GM Hall to answer that one, please.
Thank you for the question, Chair. We also have Corporate Officer Sherry Reed in the meeting, and she may have additional comments. But to staff's knowledge, there isn't a set statute of limitations per se on a public hearing, and so staff continue to move things forward, following whatever processes might be prescribed in the legislation that's applicable at the time. And it's not uncommon for there to be a delay following a hearing as matters are worked out. Although that said, this one was a little more protracted than others that we've seen recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon, did you have a follow-up to that, or new question?
New question.
Okay. Then I'm going to go to Director Hiltz first.
So in terms of the limitation period of a public hearing, in hindsight, I'm thinking that knowing that this was going to be going to an arbitration, that the board could the board have set a time period, like 6 months to get your arbitration done, or 12 months to get your arbitration done, because that was the sticking point in arbitration. I see the date was March 8th or something like that, beginning of a pandemic. But I'm thinking that might be a way to prevent the stale dating of if it's within the board's discretion when something comes up like an arbitration as a contingent on getting the application through. Is that something that board could do?
So can the board specifically ask for a drop-dead date on arbitration or a process that they may have no participation in?
Yeah, it's almost like a subject to.
I don't know who would like to handle that, GM Hall or corporate officer?
I wasn't anticipating that particular question. I think if that's something that the committee would like information on, staff could take it away and report back. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hiltz, did you want to follow up on that?
If I remember, planning staff has been looking at some process improvements, and this has been in the works. So is that something that could be included in that process improvement about not having files lying about? I remember the District of Sechelt went through this. I think there were some outstanding files that have been for a couple of years. And I'm not sure if the SCRD has that. And so is an motion there to include that in that process review about how long a file stays active? Or is that already included in that process review?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. I can say with confidence that the that process improvements related to not having stale files around are definitely in scope of what staff are reviewing. The specific prior question about can a time limit be prescribed, staff would see slightly differently, because that relates to potentially relates to legal authority. And so on that particular piece of the question of how do we ensure that our processes are tight and timely and prevent things from lingering, look at separately. Thanks.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Lots of questions occurred to me, but how do we follow up on zoning? If we approve zoning for that permits a campground with no more than 10 campsites per hectare, and then the owner builds an RV park with 50 RVs per hectare, or some other, thing that's out of scope, what happens next?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the scenario that the director described sounds like a zoning bylaw contravention, which would be approached as a bylaw enforcement matter. And the tools in that toolbox include ticketing, injunction, etc.
Director McMahon, follow up? See your hand is up.
So we could file an injunction. I can't imagine that a ticket would be a deterrent for a major project, $150 ticket or something. I also was just wondering about the geotech work in this area. And so if we approved this and then sinkholes opened up, just thought I'd ask, do we have any liability?
Staff? Geotech reports are usually only good for a certain period of time, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if staff want to speak further to that, but...
Staff are cautious about the specific question being asked and offering a general reply, but I can say that zoning land as for a permitted use does not indicate its suitability, and that for any given development, there would be a range of other processes that would have to take place, including potentially a geotechnical report that are separate from the zoning and would apply whether it's zoned industrial, commercial, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I know how the process works in the District of Sechelt. I'm not totally clear how it works in the Regional District. I know Regional District has building inspectors, for example, so if something like this comes forward, would they not need to come forward with plans as well? And then we would follow through our building department to ensure that they're building what they're supposed to be building and not building what they're not supposed to be building? And could you stop work orders and all those kinds of things to make sure that the process actually goes the way it goes? Is that the same in the Regional District?
Go ahead.
Yes, Chair. And staff can't answer the specifics of a particular process on the fly, unfortunately, but in general, that is the process, yes.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to draw people back to what we're actually discussing here, which is the zoning amendment bylaw. Director Hiltz.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I'm prepared to move the recommendations. Just for point of clarification, I was one of the two people who attended the public hearing at that time, and the concern about time passing has been a concern. But I will note that through the evolution of this project, the bylaw has changed and staff have constrained the applicant to some degree. So it's next door to a pulp mill. I wish them all the best with their intent of an eco asset, which How Sound is looking for these kinds of things. So it seems to fit. I can't see a reason not to support the recommendations. So I'll move the recommendations on the page 240.
All right. Thank you, Director Hiltz. Do I have a seconder for that? All right, that's seconded. Director McMahon, did you want to comment?
I just had a really quick question. Is the primary access for visitors intended to be by road or by water?
Go ahead, Yuli.
By road. Even though they also have a water access. Yeah.
Did you have a follow-up, Director McMahon, or you okay? Okay. Any further comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. A, B, D, E, and F. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex I, Development Variance Permit Application DVP 00064 for pods. And we'll turn it back over to Yuli.
Thank you, Chair. So through this development variance permit application, the Pender Harbor Ocean Discovery Station is seeking reduction of setback from the natural boundary of the ocean from 15 meters to 13 meters for the roof overhangs of the building and to 7.5 meters for the underground water storage tank. Staff's analysis of the application indicates that the variances are reasonable in order to accommodate the proposed building layout and design and have no adverse impact on the flood protection, the foreshore, or the geotechnical condition of the site. Therefore, staff recommend approval of these variances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Directors, any questions or comments, or perhaps a mover on the recommendation? Director Lee.
I'd like to move that we accept the recommendations as submitted on page 271.
All right, is there a seconder? Seconded. Okay. Any further comments or discussion? Again, this is rural planning, A, B, D, E, and F. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex K, Community Project, Pender Harbor Living Heritage Society, Trail, Beach, and Dock Proposal, Hotel Lake Community Park. Somebody other than Yuli, turn it over to Kevin Clarkson or GM Hall, whoever's here, whoever's speaking to it.
Can you hear me? Hello, Kevin's here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. So thank you very much, Chair. So this proposed project is an initiative of the Pender Harbor Living Heritage Society. It involves developing a trail in the park, a boat shed on School District 46 land, and a beach and dock on Hotel Lake. School District 46 owns the lands and Sarah Ray Community Hall, while SCRD leases the building from School District 46 for community hall purposes. In turn, SCRD subleases Sarah Ray Hall to the Pender Harbor Living Heritage Society. This project would further a community attraction and partnership. The Living Heritage Society has completed an environmental analysis and contact has been made with the Sheselt Nation. Any development is required to comply with legislation such as the Heritage Conservation Act and the Environmental Protection Act. School District 46 may also impose additional requirements, and the Living Heritage Society is required to comply with all laws per the terms of their sublease and is prepared to pursue the necessary permits and tenure required to deliver the project when advised. So board direction on support for this project is sought in order to move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Directors, do you have any questions or comments? Voting on this again is A, B, D, E, and F. Director Hiltz.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple general questions. So this is a Community Parks Function 650. That's a confirmation. And just from a process point of view, how long did this process take from the initiation to kind of this point? Like, it looks like a great project, a community-driven initiation project, and kind of how long from beginning to here? Just ballparking. like less than 10 years, more than a month, something like that?
Thanks. And through the chair, this project proposal actually predates my tenure. I believe it's been going on for 2 or 3 years, working with the Living Heritage Society and trying to kind of promote kind of the heritage and culture of the area, as well as kind of a community-led approach through development through the park and on school district lands through our unique agreements that we've established in partnership.
All right, and then Director Hiltz, you also wanted a confirmation that this was through Function 650?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other comments? Otherwise, I look for somebody to move some recommendations, and I see Director Lee, you've unmuted yourself.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations as presented on page 299.
All right, do I have a seconder? A couple of seconders, okay. Seeing no further hands up. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex L, Roberts Creek Pier License of Occupation Renewal. Mr. Clarkson, this is yours again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So since 2010, SCRD has held license number 714854 from the BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for the use of public highway at the end of Roberts Creek Road. The license area is located directly adjacent to Roberts Creek Pier Park. The license area enables public access and provision of amenities like washrooms, tables, benches, and signage, garbages and recycling receptacles, as well as public parking, and allows for community events. SCRD Parks actively maintains and operates both the park and the license area. The license area is now due for renewal, and a third 5-year term is being offered by the province. Staff recommend renewal of the BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure License of Occupation number 714854. Continued occupation under this agreement allows SCRD to operate and maintain Roberts Creek Pier Park and provide park users with both access and amenities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Ties.
Thank you, Chair. Overall, of course, I'm in favor of renewing that. This year, it's been brought to my attention, especially by the people living right around the pier, that noise levels and partying past, the 11 o'clock has happened a lot and on multiple occasions. It seems to be a bit of a cross-jurisdictional issue because we've got, the RCMP, of course, is supposed to respond to some of the behavior that was happening down there, but then we also have noise bylaws that we can't enforce because nobody is actually working at that time, and then we also have provincial land that technically where you're allowed to light fires. You're not allowed to light fires in the park, but the fire pit is actually above the high tide line, so technically it is in the park. And so it just seems to be a bit of a hot spot for controversy right now, and I'm just wondering if there's anything that staff could suggest maybe doing to create a little bit more of a structure around the bylaws that are in place and our ability to enforce them. And I don't know if there should be a motion in that regard, but I'm willing to move these recommendations for now.
So I'm going to ask that we vote on this first, and then perhaps we will look at the additional item that you brought up there with enforcement. So you're moving those recommendations as presented. I see a seconder. Director Seegers.
Thank you. If you look at the map on page, I believe it's 310. Sorry, I lost my page.
Map's on 311.
311, okay. I was making it bigger and then all of a sudden I clicked on something and it disappeared. The red, I understand, or I believe, outlines the area that we're actually looking at. So then the parking and all of those other amenities that we're providing aren't actually on the area that we are taking the license for. They're actually on, it looks like, provincial Ministry of Transport right of way. Or do we actually own that lot as well? So some clarity around, I mean, we're looking at taking over this lease or whatever, this license of occupation, but what about the rest of it around there that we're maintaining? Who owns that?
GM
Thank
Hall.
you for the.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Clarkson, if you want, and then GM Hall can chime in.
Oh, well, absolutely. If Ian wants to head the question, go ahead. Thank you.
It's all yours, Ian.
Well, thank you, Chair. So there's a combination of jurisdictions that are involved in the area that people would probably consider Roberts Creek Pier Park. So they include this license area, probably some areas of parking that are within the right-of-way, an adjacent lot, which is a park owned by SCRD, areas below the high tide line on both sides of the pier, which are under the jurisdiction of the province, and then the pier itself, which is a separate provincial license area. So hence the complexity in coordination and enforcement that Director Tighe referenced.
Thank you. Director Seegers, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Director Hiltz?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a quick question on the 5-year term. And if I understand, so in the past, or this is the third separate 5-year term, there's no subject renewal, there's separate and discrete applications, and the 5-year term, the duration is chosen by the regional district or offered by MOTI.
And just as I'm going to tag on to your question, since staff will be answering that, how does this align with the pier occupation itself? Whoever would like to take that on. GM Hall, perhaps?
Thank you, Chair. 5-year term is offered by the ministry and is, I believe, and in my experience, a standard. And I apologize, unless our superintendent knows, I don't know that, I don't have at hand the expiry for the pier license or lease at hand.
It's in the report. I can report back. It was this past summer though, and due for renewal.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, I've lost my page, but that's okay. I'm going to call the question. This is A, B, D, E, and F. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Thank you. Director Tighe?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for a motion here. I might have. The motion might be that staff prepare a report on possible avenues to ameliorate issues regarding contravention of noise bylaws and the illegal use of campfires in SCRD parks for this location before the next summer season, something like that.
Okay. I'm going to ask for staff's feedback on that before I ask for a seconder for it. Are staff okay with that? Is that capable within the work plans and what have you?
I think so, Chair. There are a number of initiatives underway, either through 2020 approved budget or identified in the strategic plan that would seem to touch on this, and so staff can certainly report back.
And CEO McKinley.
What he said.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, so I have a mover on that. Do I have a seconder on that? Thank you, Director Lee. Sorry, your hand blended into the wall. I didn't see it there. I guess I have a process question. Does this still fall within community parks, or is this voting at large?
Chair, I believe this is community. Actually, if corporate officer is on the line, I'll defer to her as an agreement with senior government. Although it's being administered through the Park Service, I will defer to my colleague with more expertise.
I was just going to confirm, I believe the voting is correct. Is the question around the voting?
The voting for this additional motion that Director Ties has brought up.
Oh, sorry.
Whether it would fall under community parks or whether it be sort of voting at large.
It would be, I would think, an at-large vote.
Thank you. Director Hilt?
I just reading back the motion as I'm clarifying this is specific to the public Roberts Creek public pier opposed to fires in like Bonnybrook and things like this. Is this is specific? The report is specific to this facility.
I believe that was what was said, but can I, Autumn, can you read it back for us?
Thank you, Chair. I did not get that motion read by Director Ties, so if he's got it, he might have to read that back.
Perfect. Sounded like he had something pre-written, so perhaps he can read it for us again.
Yeah, I sent it to staff. It might have not quite made it through to Autumn. Sorry, I can email it to you later if you wish. Staff prepare a report on possible avenues to ameliorate issues regarding contravention of noise bylaws and the illegal use of campfires. You want me to pause for a second?
If you've emailed it, I think that's okay. Yeah. Carry on. In SCRD parks for this location before the next summer season. So you're identifying specifically SCRD parks, but this location.
For this location, so I guess for Roberts Creek Pier, we can widen this if that's the desire of other directors as well as okay in scope for staff.
Okay. Director McMahon, I've got a bit of a speakers list forming here. Let's go with some directors first.
I'm okay with keeping the scope to the Roberts Creek Pier. You know, the report may come up with some strategies that would apply elsewhere, but why don't we just start with this one specific example?
Okay. Director Cole, I see you had your hand up, but you took it down, so now your hand's back up. Would you like to speak, Director Cole?
Well, I was sort of thinking if we're going to do it, it should include all the SCRD parks because it's if you bring it in for this park and then you have to sort of readdress it to consider all parks. So I would assume that a lot of the issues that occur here happen in other areas, and it would be sort of a common report to all.
I guess I will direct a question to GM Hall in that, do you feel that expanding the scope of this to all SCRD parks would be unreasonable within the work plan, or would you like to keep it just to the Roberts Creek Pier for now?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Since you asked staff's opinion there, acknowledging that the learnings from an exercise that's focused on this site could likely be adapted or exported to other sites. Staff appreciate the specific scope and feel that that helps with delivering on expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Yeah, I'm supportive of keeping the scope small. As much as I'd like to know all the other stuff, but in the wording just didn't see, it said SCRD parks and, so it was just a little confusing in the language of the, whether it was the Roberts Creek Park or SCRD parks and, so that, it was just, I'm supportive of the narrowing scope. Just, I just want to make sure that resolution narrows that scope and doesn't actually open it.
Okay, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I would, we have this issue in all our parks, well, not all, but most of them. And when you, I think we're talking about bylaw enforcement, not parks. I don't think we have a noise bylaw specifically to parks. I think we are actually talking about a noise bylaw, and whether it's parks or not, it would apply everywhere. I'd be interested in seeing if that is correct, because I can't see how we could just limit something like this to a park. But anyways.
So your question is whether our noise bylaws are applying to parks or whether we have separate parks behavioral bylaws, so to speak?
Well, that's kind of what the motion is saying, is that we do have some sort of a bylaw about noise in parks that's unique to parks, and I wasn't aware of such an animal. I think we just plain have a noise bylaw, period.
GM Hall?
Thank you, Chair. I think this might be getting into the type of research that is needed, because as the director points out, or to answer the director's question, yes, there are regulations regarding noise in parks. We also have a noise bylaw. The interface of those and how they overlay different jurisdictions is not something that staff are able to answer today, and we would want to look into further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call the question so we can move on from this. All those in favor? Opposed? No, that's carried. Okay. Moving on to Annex N. Speakers for resolutions to the 2020 UBCM convention. And turn it over to staff.
Thank you. Through the chair, this report is being brought to the committee in order to have speakers designated for each UBCM resolution as required. There were 9 resolutions brought forward to UBCM from the SCRD in total. 6 of them were recommended to be endorsed. 2 were originally deemed as no recommendation, but were subsequently reassigned as to be endorsed. And then 1 stands as no recommendation and will be considered separately, time permitting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director McMahon.
Yep, I have a lot of questions about UBCM this year that I thought we might perhaps deal with under new business this afternoon at board. In the meantime, I'm happy to volunteer myself for cumulative effects and stormwater.
Okay. Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment that we have been approached by provincial partners and another municipality regarding a couple of our resolutions. So the police-based victim services, we're approached by the provincial arm of police victim, the executive director for provincial police-based victim services, and they fully endorse this as well, which is this motion, which is great. I'm happy to speak to it. I'm actually happy to speak to any of these, depending on where the other directors lie. The other one, the medical cannabis safety concerns. I had a mayor, I think it was Williams Lake, Mayor Cobb from Williams Lake approached me because they have some concerns in their community about cannabis and concerns about how this may pan out. So I have a feeling that one might be pulled. So if there's one of the directors that wants to take this on, otherwise, like I said, I'm happy to speak to any of these on behalf of the board.
Okay. I mean, on one hand, we could just sign you up for all of them and move on with our agenda, but I got a speakers list now. So Director Seegers.
Yeah. Yes. I actually brought this up at the committee with our police committee. I'd be more than happy to speak to medical cannabis.
As would I, but I'll defer to Director Seegers.
Okay. Director Ties, did you have anything else you wanted to volunteer for, or?
No, that was it for now.
Okay. Director Hiltz.
If we're collecting names, backup plan, I'd speak to 2 and 4.
Thank you for taking on more than one, Director Hiltz. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the Ruth Simons was the guest speaker at the Elphinstone Community Association last night. And the House Sound group is very interested in the marine debris resolution. We didn't actually tell people like that we were making this resolution. They were very happy to hear it. If we need a speaker for that one, I'd think about that. But that's my limit.
Thank you, Director McMahon. So at this point, we're still looking for a speaker for ICI, packaging and paper products recycling, cumulative effects of land use decisions, and business licensing authority. Director McMahon.
I volunteered for cumulative effects and stormwater management.
Oh, and stormwater management. My apologies. I heard the stormwater management and called it a day. Okay, so recycling and business licensing authority for regional districts. Director Pratt?
As I said, I'm happy to, and unless one of the other directors wants to speak to it, I'm happy to do anything. So.
Okay. Director Ties?
I'll do the business licensing.
Okay. And Director Seegers?
I'd like to recommend that Director Toth do the ICI.
Sure.
Just given that, I mean, you're very aware of the impacts.
Yep.
Right?
Sure, I will do that. So I've got number 1, Director Pratt. Number 2, Director Hiltz. Number 3, Director Seegers. Number 4, Director Hiltz. Number 5, Director Toth. Number 6, Director McMahon. Number 7, Director McMahon. Number 8, Director Ties. And number 9, Director McMahon again. Does anybody want to fight over any of those? Then I think Director Hiltz wants to fight. Director McMahon?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the process is for a resolution that there's no recommendation. Is that likely to come under discussion? Should we, get other regional districts on side to support us? Okay, we can have this discussion this afternoon.
Sounds like a good conversation for this afternoon, but yeah, I don't know if Sherry wants to touch on anything real quick since she unmuted herself there.
Thank you, Chair. So with respect to the recommendation, the resolution with no recommendation, that one will definitely come forward and it will need an introduction, but it's also time dependent. So UBCM has been very specific that those resolutions without a recommendation will all be considered individually, not part of the block, subject to time. And I think maybe Jennifer confirm, I think it's number 78 or 48 of 70 some odd resolutions without recommendation that will be coming forward.
Through the chair, yes, for the marine debris with no recommendation, we are 46 of 79. So it's just if there's time to have it on the floor.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
And looking at the resolutions book, this is all going to be done in 3 hours. If I, looking at the schedule, it all happens on one day within 3 hours. So that's the way I read it. So.
Okay.
Sure, that is correct.
Oh, sorry. Looking for somebody to move the recommendations from A, B, D, E, or F. Director Hiltz, I saw. Director Pratt, I saw. So that's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great. That's carried. Thank you very much. We're going to look at items O, P, Q, and R, sort of all at once, since they're all minutes. I had one question on page 326 of the AAC minutes. About a third of the way down the page, I wanted to hear the term woofers defined, please.
Well, firstly, Chair, apologies for including an acronym in our minutes. We strive not to do that, but WOOF is an organization of organic farmers that I believe promotes live-work placements for folks that are interested in working on organic farms for room and board. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or business arising from those minutes? Director Hiltz.
I have been a woofer in the past, so if you're interested in woofer details, I'm happy to talk about woofing. It's really a terrific program for apprenticeships, providing labor for farms in exchange. It's really a tremendous opportunity. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Don't see any hands. I'll give everybody another 30 seconds if there was anything that jumped out at them that they want to address or talk about. Director Hiltz.
Yeah, page 324, it was coming out of the police committee. It was about going to strategic plan, the social service function. We didn't really cover it off, so I would assume that that we're not going to be moving forward with this, with the whole idea of a social service function at this point. It's not on the work plan. It's not in the strategic plan. So that's,
Sherry.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, there is a directive to bring forward a report to explore the idea of establishing a contribution service, and that is something I am intending to bring forward in October.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Director Hiltz?
Just a little bit of the discussion about the agriculture plan. About this, there's a pot of money, I think it's called the agricultural amenity, and lots of discussion, but I think kind of the way the discussion has broken down is kind of what can you do in short term to support agriculture and what can you do on the long term, and that's I think part of the discussion is about, is this money for legacy purposes or is this money for an immediate? And this is just something that's the AAC is continuing to discuss. So I just wanted to that the discussion is vigorous and ongoing.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. Seeing nothing further from that, we're going to jump back in our agenda to Annex F on page 175. Half Moon Bay Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 675.3 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 310.174, Secret Grove Heights Development. Turn it over to Mr. Sayo.
Thank you, Chair. So the public hearing on this application has gathered further feedback from the community that both supports and oppose the bylaws. Staff's land use planning analysis has concluded that the proposed development is contradictory to the policies of the OCP and is inappropriate for the location in the resource designation. Opportunities for this proposal are more suitable for area outside of the resource designated area, such as rural residential designated area that are zoned to permit agriculture, small lot sizes, home occupation, and a mix of other compatible uses. In staff's view, the proposal does not present a broad community benefit and the proponent's rationale and public support received do not sufficiently justify a change to the OCP's fundamental land use planning policies and principles for the subject area. So based on these, staff do not support these zoning and OCP amendment proposal and recommend abandoning the proposed bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. GM Hall.
Just one typographical clarification that on page 176, where it's noted that there were 16 expressions of opposition, staff on reviewing counting, that number could be 15. Thank you.
15. Thank you very much. Directors. Any questions, comments, discussion? Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. One thing I just wanted to clarify, and that has come up previously, is if the current development happened to be stratified, my understanding is it could actually take, you could put up to 16 dwellings, is that correct?
Staff. Julie?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can answer that question. So if the current parcels are stratified under a building strata title, so each parcel could permit up to 4 dwellings. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the total number of dwellings could be 16. But these buildings will be under a building strata title, which means the title is only for the building, not for the common area or land. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up, Director Pratt?
Well, I have a lot of comments, but I know there's a bit of a speaker's list, so I'm happy to hear from other directors before I pontificate.
Thank you. Director McMahon?
Good, it's my turn to pontificate. I have been, in the last few months, I've been in a lot of meetings with the Climate Caucus, reviewing the drivers of climate change and what local governments can do to mitigate their impacts. It's very frustrating because, as we all know, we're at the bottom of the government food chain, and many critical decisions are outside of our authority, such as regulating single-use plastics, as an example. The one thing that lies squarely in our purview as a regional district is land use planning. The development of more and more land for housing and commercial activities is having a huge impact on our environment, both directly and indirectly. Over the last 15 years, the number of vehicles on Canadian roads has risen much faster than the population, and one of the big reasons for that is sprawling suburbs. Those vehicles don't only add to GHG emissions and strain the capacity of our crumbling cow track, but the vehicles create other unregulated non-exhaust emissions. That's another acronym for you, NEEs. For instance, tires account for as much as 10% of the microplastic waste in the oceans, and metal particles from our brakes are toxic to humans when they're airborne and to fish when they're washed into our creeks and streams. We especially need to minimize greenfield development, new buildings on previously undeveloped land. Unfortunately, the way that regulations and policies in this province are designed, it makes greenfield development cheaper and easier than redevelopment. So there is constant pressure to expand our footprint. So that's, I've already said the other reasons that I'm opposed to this project, but I think we need to always keep climate change lens on our decisions when we're here making land use decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair, and I'll be supportive of staff's recommendations. And it was this process has been going on for a long time. And looking through the letters, it was on page 200, regardless of however this turns out, on page 219, most of the letters are quite short. This one, someone put a lot of effort into this letter. And I'm just going to read a couple of the phrases of how the public perceives SCRD, one person of the public perceives SCRD. Short-sighted, slow-moving zoning restrictions, elitist official community plans, privileged mentality, catastrophic negligence, undue influence. I guess for me what it is we have a long ways to go to explain how all these processes work, because I find the process is sometimes slow-moving, but I also know that moving a ship takes a lot of effort, and you don't want it to necessarily turn on a dime. You want it to kind of go more or less straight, not doubling back. So I guess I'm disturbed with the language. So for me, it's explaining the SCRD and that there is madness behind the processes, and it's been working for 50 years. And I support the planner's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Ties.
Thank you, Chair. I've been on the fence on this. I do see some use out of the idea that's springing forward. I do agree with staff's assessment that there's no comprehensive plan to indicate that this will be more than just another subdivision in the end. I think while the intention is laudable, I don't see any sort of hard evidence that this is actually going to play out that way. On top of that, I also agree with putting more car-dependent communities further away from transportation hubs is not something that we should be pursuing. So I'm leaning to following staff's recommendations on this, and I would like to thank everybody for going through the process of going through the public hearing and getting some feedback. I think there's been some due process that's been done. Yes, we move a bit slower than many people would like, but I think there's some reasons behind these deliberations, and I think this one's been debated to the full extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ties. Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. Director Ties, you took some of my words. I was just going to say thank you so much to everyone for continuing to have this conversation and following the lead of allowing that due process and allowing that community conversation, allowing it to go to having it go to public hearing to get that additional public consultation happening. I do know this area well, as it's very close to where I live, and I do drive up there consistently, as well as in my other role as a realtor. It's my job to make sure that I know what's going on in the area. I think there's a couple of things I did want to address. I know there's been a lot around the agriculture argument about it not being sufficient for agriculture. My family, we're farmers from way back from more than a century ago, and in areas of Saskatchewan and Alberta where you shouldn't have been able to farm because it was all Dust Bowl area. I know, agriculture can happen almost anywhere with new technologies. There's a piece with the non-family member employees that's addressed in here and brought up in here, and I think that's an interesting conversation that we should be bringing up as part of the regional growth strategy. As our lives have changed dramatically with the pandemic, and as technology has gotten better, we can now work away from hubs. So I think that's an interesting piece that's been brought up through the whole dynamic rural zone, which I'm incredibly supportive of the dynamic rural zone. But at the end of the day, in looking at this development, and I've fully supported having this go to the community, having it continue to be talked about. I'm disappointed that that the province approves subdivisions in areas that are outside of our outside of what the community wants and what our local, because this has been designated as its own place that predates OCP amendments and APC recommendations, OCP recommendations, staff recommendations. It is a resource area. That it's been designated a resource area by the official community plan. It's, it does border the forest, and through all this process, I know it's split amongst the community. I know it's been splitting me, and I've been keeping an open mind the whole way along, and I know it's been a long process. But at the end of the day, I think I need to fall back to what the OCP stands for, what the APC has said, and what staff has recommended. And so at the end of the day, I, as innovative as this project is, as everything goes, I need to support what's come up. And when there's a concept that I live by, that if you're hearing everything divided, then usually you need to go with be a little bit more conservative and say no. And so I would be supporting staff's recommendations in abandoning this as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pratt. Would you like to make that motion?
Just a second, what page is that on?
175.
Okay, let me scroll back, please.
Just a reminder, this is rural planning, so this is A, B, D, E, and F.
So I would, and I will say, I will regretfully, because I was hoping that we could find a way of making this work, but I will ask to move the recommendations on page 175.
Thank you for that. And Director McMahon is seconding that. Any further discussion on the recommendation that is now on the floor? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Director Lee, I didn't see your vote, but that is carried. Okay. Moving on to, thank you to our staff. Thank you to everybody who's put in the time on this. And we're going to move on with our agenda. Moving on to Annex T and U, the communications items that we have not dealt with yet. Is there anything from those that anybody would like to address, discuss, etc.? Annex U is the petition to stop the renaming, which I understand staff may have an update on that they would like to share. Or a process update, I should say.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, on this matter, there was direction provided by the board in July to request an extension to the feedback period for a name change, and staff have proceeded with that and can advise that an extension to the end of December was granted by the province. And support for a community-to-community discussion was to be sought, and staff can confirm that an application to UBCM's community-to-community forum program has been made. And there were further directions related to writing to community groups to seek dialogue, and I believe that those letters, if they haven't been signed, they are on the verge of being signed and going out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything anybody would like to discuss regarding either of those letters? Seeing Director Lee's hand up. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank staff for all their work on this and moving it along and getting a coordinated plan to go forward. I'd like to see a resolution that everybody is comfortable with on this naming, and I think the path we've chosen to investigate the issues and hopefully arrive at a satisfactory resolution is now in place, now in sight. So thanks for staff for doing all this work and getting us lined up. Now, if we can engage the province and they actually explain what the heck is supposed to happen, that would be cool too.
All right. Thank you, Director Lee. Not seeing any further hands up. All right. Information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. Moved? Seconded? All those in favor? Okay. And before we do that, do we have any questions from the gallery?
While you do that, I'm just going to say I'll see you at 1:30. I have another meeting to go to.
Farewell. Any questions from the gallery? Okay. Then I guess we will be going in camera. All right, welcome back to our Planning and Community Development Committee meeting for September the 10th, 2020. Having concluded our agenda, I now look for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Thank you very much. See everybody back here at 1:30.